Hi guys. Our Yard's latest PowerPoint is about the mystery of Easter Island. So I'm going to be reading from a second screen over here, and John will put them together as he has been doing. So what have we got today? We've got Israeli warplanes, I'm reading from a headline, bombed several targets in the Gaza Strip. And this is just one of a few. Israeli warplanes. This was recorded on by Press TV on Wednesday, October the 10th. Israeli warplanes have pounded several targets in the town of Beit Lahia in northern Gaza Strip, with no reports on possible casualties, Palestinian security forces say. However, on Saturday the 13th, a Israeli drone, fired at and killed a man on a bicycle in the northern Gaza, and then another man was mortally wounded as well, and 4 others taken to hospital. And there were aircraft flyovers that were manned that have been consistently, they say it's a matter of defense. So you've got the Palestinians trying to defend themselves with their dinky little homemade rockets, and the entire Israeli air defense forces bombing them back. So let's move right along here. And so the Western world sits back watching as Israelite jets continually terrorize Palestine. Why? Why is the focus on Palestine? Their Zionist Christianity, we're talking about the beast here, is the beast. Heartless and insane, allowing demonic monsters controlling the holy lands. This is why Yahweh has chosen Iran and Islam to be the world religion. Now, measuring the earth is why Ezekiel and others were told to measure the temple. In Ezekiel's time, the temple in Jerusalem had been destroyed. He was just a boy taken to Babylon along with the prophet Daniel. The message was to measure and therefore to be carried out at the end time, which is now. So we're going over to Easter Island and begin measuring. Easter Island lays 5,000... Oh, sorry, it begins with Tahiti. Tahiti is 5,000 miles north of the South Pole. So from Tahiti to the South Pole is exactly 5,000 miles. And that aligns with the 50th layer of masonry, which is the King's Chamber floor in the pyramid, the Great Pyramid.
So the point of all that is that the Great Pyramid is a mini in numbers of the Earth itself. So therefore, they know damn well that all these numbers of the Great Pyramid reflect in the structure of the Earth itself.
Right. Now, we're measuring from...
That's the tip of New Zealand. Now, New Zealand is 888 miles between latitudes. Cook discovered that on his trip there after being in Tahiti. And from coast to coast, the shortest point is 2,399 miles. So there it is there. I've verified this with Magellan.
Yeah. So the distance is 2,085.22 nautical miles. That gives us a number to work with. 2085 in Greek is to instruct differently, teach other doctrine, and in brackets, wise. Now in kilometres it's 3861, and it means paradoxos, which is contrary to expectation, and in miles is 2399, and that number means idiots, and ignoramus, ignorant and unlearned. And that's exactly what we are dealing with.
Most of you watching are in that category.
So we've measured from New Zealand and its Zionist Christian churches to Tahiti, because Tahiti has a mountain that is 7,353 feet high. That number, 7,353, is the area of the Shroud of Turin, which is 171 inches long by 43 inches wide. Tahiti is also where a pyramid was discovered by Lieutenant Cook, Mare of Mahayatea. Its footprint is 23,229 square feet. Now that is the age that Yahweh's grandfather was. If you divide that number by years, he was 63.6 years old. 63.6 is a reference to Isaiah 63, verses 1 through to 6. It's a photograph of the pyramid on Tahiti.
Now the point of this pyramid, 10 years later they returned and destroyed it. Now it's 78 metres long, to give you some idea. It's almost half as big as a football field. And can you imagine the mass of stones that's in it, yet they destroyed it utterly. Very odd, isn't it? This is the Endeavour. It's called Devour. But this particular ship here was rebuilt by some lunatics that thought it was a great thing to do.
Now the ship's log reveals that Lieutenant Cook's measurements are 267 multiplied, 267 feet long by 87 feet wide. However, since Yahweh made it known 20 years ago, all references to it have altered the base and reduced the footprint. The Zionists have known precisely where Yahweh would be reborn and that they had little time. Being idiots, they think they could forbid Christ, which is part of protocol number 14 from the learned elders of Zion. Now, of course, that's the reference going back 3 slides to the ignoramus, idiots. It would be this, the protocols of Zion.
The mere fact that they're saying they're going to forbid me means I'm coming as a man, doesn't it? Oh dear.
The Endeavour was originally a merchant collier named Earl of Pembroke, launched in June 1764 from the coal and whaling port of Whitby in North Yorkshire, and as such is known locally as the Whitby Cat. She was ship-rigged and sturdily built with a broad, flat bow, a square stern, and a long box-like body with a deep hold. Her length was 106 feet or 32 metres and 97 feet 7 inches or 29.74 metres on her lower deck, with a beam of 29 feet 3 inches or 8.92 metres, and her burthen was 368 and then 71/79 tons.
They had a rather large scale to weigh it with. Now, when it was renamed from the Pembroke, the coal ship, to the Endeavour, it was on the same date as the discovery of Easter Island. That was discovered in 1722. So this is 1768, and that's the date of the resurrection, April the 6th, 1768.
Moving right along, that's a repeat. Cook sighted the famous comet of Messier on August the 30th, 1769. Now that's a period of 1.011 years after leaving England on August the 26th in 1768. This number, 1011, is the number of times the word David is found in the original King James Version 1611 Bible, and his mother's birth date, so this is Yahweh's mother's birth date, which is October 10, 11th, 1912. The comet date of August the 30th, 1769, when we add 88,888 days, is January the 11th, 2013, which is Yahweh's 69th birthday. Now, make no mistake, the top of the satanic pyramid of the Zionists have several agendas, all to eliminate all life on the earth. Hitler was right. Unless they are stopped, the planet would become a lifeless orbiting through the ether of space. These inhuman monsters are behind every evil the earth has endured. Now, 10 years after the discovery of the pyramid on Tahiti, it was dismantled, which is another stupid move because it just brings attention to it. They were not smart enough to read the ship's log as recorded by Cook on board the Endeavour. It was a huge undertaking, the pyramid being 78.5 metres long with 11 layers, or 267 feet by 87.
I've written this in Aramaic and in Persian, just so that the watchers of this will have to get an Arab or a Persian to read it for them. You see what I'm saying here?
Arabic or Persian. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're coming to the mystery of Easter Island itself. There's some horses there. You can see the horse stands 5.5 feet, 6 feet at the shoulder, and you can see just the head alone is 3 times the height of a horse, so it could be 15 feet sticking out the ground. Now they report 887 statues. I'm saying no, you're wrong. There's 888, but they insist 887.
Now, the island has an area of 63.1 square miles. Why? This is the return of the Lord God to judge the Jews and wipe them off the face of the earth. It's a reference to Isaiah 63, quoting, "Who is that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious is in his apparel, travelling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save." End quote. Now, the distance to key locations means destruction. The largest statue, the Lord statue, is called El Gigante. It measures 71 feet and 11 inches, and they have a weight recorded of 242.4 tons. It is joined to the volcano by a sliver along its back. Now, the number 7111 in Hebrew is from 7107. Its meaning to crack off or burst out in rage, provoke to wrath, and be wroth. Scholars continue to say there are 887 statues, but Yahweh has been saying for decades the largest statue is the Lord, and there is another yet to be found. Where is the missing statue? There are 887, including the Lord statues, buried up to their necks, 30 tons or more for the larger, facing the sea, immovable, being buried in various angles. But beside the El Gigante, or the Lord statue, is another one. There's no information on it. Her body is on the right side of the Lord, emerging out of the volcano. But before we go there, we're going to go back for a bit. From the most northern point on Easter Island, measures 8.88 miles to the coast, one eastward and the other westward. When you join the 2 and 3 lines, they all measure together 30.50 nautical miles. And that number is the same number as the height of the rejected capstone to the Great Pyramid at Giza in feet, 30.50 pyramid feet. Going back to the number of statues, 887, question mark, there is another. Now, the number 886 in Greek is unmanufactured, made without hands, not made with hands, while 887 is dimness of sight. Island legend relates how giant white men arrived, cut the statues, carried them upright, floating them through the air, lowering them into prepared pits. Then when finished, they went back eastward into the sky. Now, to answer the question of Easter Island, we have to understand and condemn Christianity for rejecting the Lord. That's a reference to Psalm 118, verse 22. The stone the builders rejected. 30.50 pyramid feet high is the height of the capstone of the pyramid. And that number, 3050, is the number for Yah. So the pyramid is symbolic of Yah being rejected by the builders of the pyramid, who are the Freemason-controlled Western Christian churches, the builders of society today. When we select the most northern point on the island and measure to the most westerly and easterly, the line is 8.88. Add them all together, it's 30.50 nautical miles. Yah, that's the number for Yah. It's only found once in the Old Testament and not in the New Testament at all. So we have the answer. In the Hebrew Old Testament of the 1611 King James Version of the Bible, there's 8,674 words listed. Then, in the Greek New Testament of the same Bible only, there's 5,624 words listed in the Greek New. So the difference between the two is 3,050 words, 3050.
Good.
So what is it saying? It's saying that Christianity, operating from the Greek New Testament, is rejecting Yah, who is the capstone to the pyramid, determined by its height of 30.50 pyramid feet. Isn't it marvellous? Aren't we glad that God is here?
Houdini was a Jew and he couldn't get this one, I tell you.
Now, examining the area on the island where the statues were removed from the side of the volcano, the line across from the east and west of the 8.88 nautical mile at West Point, when you join with the line west across the island, the total distance is 30.50 and passes through the giant statue El Gigante, the Lord. Right through your guts, babe. What did your mother used to say to you?
Punch him in the guts.
Punch him in the guts.
She's a lovely lady. She failed at elocution, I believe.
Now, here are the two, here's El Gigante and the unseen, hidden.
Now, I'd like to point out here that if a blind man showed up here and he just felt around, he would feel a chin on the statue that has been disfigured and obliterated by the Cook expedition. And with all their carpenters and their mallets and so forth, they attacked it and took the nose off and then damaged the eyes and made it generally that you can't recognise what it is. Mm. But because it's so huge, I mean, the thing probably weighs 150 tonne. Think of the logic here. The chin, a lot of work, possibly 8 feet wide, maybe more, and 5 or 6 feet deep, has been hacked out of the surrounding area, but stupidly, it's blocking the larger statue. It would be the only statue on the island that has another something in front of it. Why not make the main Gigante statue where the other one is situated? Could have easily done that, just chip down, but at least you can get the damn thing out. However, they didn't do that because the other one beside it is the 888 statue.
Okay, so both of the statues are emerging from the volcano, representative of hell. Well, I'm representative of hell?
You can put them in it.
Totally. All right. Cook returned to England. Wallace had reported on the statue on Easter Island. Cook reported the 11-tiered pyramid.
So let's just go, put that in a little context here. Using the Harrison clock, which was one of my relatives who designed it, he won the longitude competition, £20,000, but the Parliament wasn't going to pay him. It took him 50 years to build 5 or 6 different clocks. So he's very thorough. He made them smaller and smaller and smaller till finally I was down to maybe a plate size. The original one was huge. So over time they were giving him some money to carry on, and then finally they confiscated all the clocks because I was in a rush to beat time. So whoever had a longitude clock controlled the oceans, because if you've discovered something you can put your name on it and that's it, and get back to it. There's another point. So what happened was that Wallace on the SS Dolphin had sailed there and discovered, out in the middle of 5,000 miles of ocean, he discovered 5,000 miles from the South Pole, Tahiti. It has an area that is the number for Gabriel. When Cook showed up with another Harrison clock, he measured and in his ship's log again noted that Wallace was correct. Now here's a lieutenant saying that a captain of a ship that had come there before him was correct in his measurements. But he did have a Mr. Green with him from the what would it be, the telescopes and all of the Greenwich Laboratory and Greenwich Mean Line is where it's all based on time. And he was responsible for getting Harrison his money by going directly to George III and he went to the Parliament and told him to pay him his money. So now they sail down there, and Wallace, he then immediately sails and finds, because after all, Easter Island was itself a very hard place to find. Now can you imagine finding a little dot in the middle of, say, North America or Europe? That's what it's like, with only navigation tools. But the Dutch had been there before him and they didn't have longitude clock, so therefore all they could give you was an approximation of where it was. So he was able to find it by going to the latitude that the Dutch had given him, and or they'd stolen off the Dutch more likely, and sailed along until they hit it, and then he was able to lay it out. So what we've got then is the 11-tiered pyramid, which is the footprint, which is the same number in between my age and my grandfather's age.
On Tahiti, not Easter
On
Island.
Tahiti.
Mm.
So by the time they got this information back to the Admiralty, they were packing their shits, and of course they sent him out, Cook out, at a later date to study where Wallace had been, and he followed Wallace's footsteps after he had left. After discovering Tahiti, he then sailed on to Easter Island and confirmed that there were these huge statues there, and there's no doubt in the world that they discovered and marked the largest statue. And that's the most logical thing they would do. They wouldn't find the smallest, they'd find the largest, and beside it they had a drawing, I would suppose, of what the two statues side by side meant. So the English would have tweaked, because they're not stupid, and sent back Cook to deface the larger statue. There you go.
So when we look at the rock El Gigante was carved from, okay, what was the location to its left to avoid the vast amount of rock required, as well as where it is, how to remove it with 100 tons of rock in the way. So it doesn't make sense of having it where it is when all of that other rock beside it, which now we know, because it is dimly seen, is the 888 statue. The reason is obvious. Look at the chin of El Gigante, a sharp cut perhaps 8 feet off the throat level and 20 feet wide. The same shape in the rock next to it. Clearly another jaw was being cut. The other jaw too difficult to remove. The nose and eyes a much easier task, with the ship's carpenters hacking away, and visible features, and more likely than not the female would have had hands on her stomach as being pregnant. Keep in mind how huge these statues are and the time it would take to disfigure it. Let us assume that if we were to look at a piece of rock on the side of the volcano, you would not excavate 3 times the width of the finished statue and leave a huge 150-ton or more obstacle in the way. When we look at other statues in the quarry, one can be removed, then the next, and so on. Therefore, the only logical conclusion is that the statue beside El Gigante is Asherah. So where is the 888th statue? Beside El Gigante. Both emerging from the volcano, symbolic of the man-made hell on the earth in the time of the end, which is now. Google Earth has been shown to be inaccurate in several of our videos. As of late, the Northern Hemisphere has been forced to update and is now reasonably accurate over short distances, but the Southern Hemisphere is still inaccurate. Therefore, we always cross-check with Magellan satellite GPS software. From the east coast of New Zealand to El Gigante is 3,628 nautical miles, and that number is the word espousal, which means to wed the Lord.
Now that is the displacement factor of the Great Pyramid. Those of you who have been following us know that the pyramid was laid out on 4 cornerstones, sunk into the bedrock, marked out with very fine chiseled line to be 36524.24 pyramid inches. Then it was shrunk by 286.1, and this is the espousal. So when you take the 36524.24, which is 100 years, each inch equals a year, then a day rather, then we subtract 3628, and we've got subtracted 286.1, and we got 3628, and that is the 2 espousal numbers. I've drawn here measuring between latitudes. This again Cook had discovered, and it's 888 miles for the top part of New Zealand to the bottom part of New Zealand, or latitudes, 888 miles apart.
Now from the southern tip of New Zealand to the South Pole is 4,749 kilometres. That number in Greek is stole, a long robe to the feet, garment as a mark of dignity. That's found in Luke 15:22. Cook was using the Harrison clock, accurate for determining longitude. Sailing back from Antarctica, he noted a magnificent comet on August the 30th, 1769, and when adding 88,888 days, it lands on January the 11th, 2013.
I'm going to get a cardboard handle after the car, by the way.
69th birthday.
There's probably somewhere in the ship's log that got the longitude and latitude of it, where he sighted it, which would be interesting. So here we have Jah with the Asherah laying beside it, defaced. So the chin cut, the nose smashed, eyes sockets still seen, the forehead damaged, the body disfigured, the chin clearly is seen as being cut. That'd be too hard to get rid of, being so big. So they left it, because they're idiots, right?
Now Gigante is 71 feet 11 inches and 242.4 tons, joined to the volcano by a sliver. That number meaning to crack off or burst out in rage, provoke to wrath and be wrath.
Now, what I'm going to say here is that Cook, when he left there, he had secret orders to sail to and find an alternative to Australia, so he sailed down to Antarctica. Magnificent piece of sailing, really. It was to the point of running into an ice wall, and then the men had to use barge poles to push off from the undercurrent towing a ship under the ice itself. It must have been some horrifying moments for them. Two Negro lads died of cold. If you read on the expedition itself, there's some other rubbish they talk about where they two boys were on the island and they was getting provisions or something like that, some island somewhere. And when they was trying to get back onto the ship in a snowstorm, they froze to death. Bullshit upon bullshit upon bullshit. So have we done this one?
Well, this is Lieutenant Cook arrived on Tahiti 666 days after Captain Wallis, who was on board the SS Dolphin. Wallis left Tahiti, sailing to Easter Island. Now, the islands are 4,139 nautical miles apart. That number 4139 in Hebrew meaning death or the state of Hades. So Easter Island has an area of 63.1 miles. The largest statue is emerging from the volcano. It represents the return of the Lord God and Asherah to judge the Jews and wipe them off the face of the earth.
Good riddance.
Now Moses forbade the Israelites from entering the promised land. He climbed to the top of Mount Nebo overlooking Canaan, announcing the Israelites were continually evil, forbidding them to enter Canaan. Shortly after, he died. Canaan worshipped Yahweh and Asherah. In the Torah, it is a construct of the false Jews to choose themselves as the elect of Satan. They have managed to bullshit the world, but they've actually been outflanked by the royal tribe of Judah, which is the branch. It made its way to Ireland during the first stages of the Exodus around 1521 BC. All references to Asherah were removed, and the anti-Asherah religion renamed Asherah to become groves. Then set about destroying the Asherah statues and poles surrounding the altars to Yahweh. Now the name Yahweh is Jehovah from the Hindu Vedas, and they predicted all of it, and how God himself would come to the earth, be crucified, he would be named Jesus Christ. Back one, babe. Now, quoting from Exodus...
This is the first of 24.
Yeah, this is the first mention of Asherah of the 24. It's Exodus 34:13, quoting...
Keep reading.
Oh. But he shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. The number... This is what he's talking about. The number 34:13 is Michael, the archangel, in Greek. Now, Yahweh's blood has been tested over and over and over, and reported that it has 3 unusual chromosomes, numbered 3, 4, and 13. That's all been done by the Garvan Institute in Sydney. So 3, 4, 13 is Michael the Archangel, who appeared to John on the Isle of Patmos. That's the heavenly presence of Jesus. And
easy, I'm old, you know.
Old and grey, your knees are bent. Now, getting back to Lieutenant Cook, he'd been given secret orders by the Admiralty to be opened after his scientists had studied the transition of Venus crossing the face of the Sun on June the 3rd in 1769. He was ordered to sail south to find an alternative to Australia. Why would they want to find an alternative to Australia? Hello! Because God would be reborn there. Okay, now, remembering the
It's
numbers,
all in the pyramid.
he reached the latitude of 71.10 to 71.11. That's that number, the size of El Gigante. So the ship, free with barge poles, was almost destroyed. Oh, should be free. The ship, Yahweh was telling before how it ran against an ice wall. It was freed with barge poles. It was almost destroyed by the tide washing the ship up into that wall of ice. Captain Wallace left Tahiti, then sailed to Easter Island and examined the giant statues. Cook sailed to the latitude of 71.11, and El Gigante measures 71.11 feet. Okay, so Easter Island was again later visited by Cook in 1774. Captain Wallace had discovered Tahiti, naming it George III Island. He sailed directly to Easter Island. Samuel Wallace sighted Tahiti on the 18th of June 1767. Cook sighted the comet on August the 30th, 1769, 804 days later. The number is Ashur, the second son of Shem, and the area of Assyria, worshipping Asherah, the mother goddess.
Well, that's just a coincidence, doesn't mean nothing.
So Assyria, or Athura, which is Aramaic for Assyria, was a Semitic Akkadian kingdom, extant, as with other fellow Semitic Canaan, its peoples. This is why the Khazar Zionist Mongol self-proclaimed Jews invaded Iraq and are now attempting to topple Syria. Palestine, Syria, Iraq and Iran, these are the people of Canaan. Moses forbade Israel to enter the land because of their rebellion. He was shown overlooking Canaan from Mount Nebo, then died.
This is the numbers again for the shape of Tahiti gives you the capstone of the Great Pyramid. 8.88 nautical miles on each side, to the most easterly and the most westerly, and the straight line through El Gigante, and it gives you the 3050 number. So, is it a repeat?
It's a repeat.
Okay. So there's a more of a close-up look of the chin of the larger, non-defaced, and the one beside it. You can see the chin quite clearly being cut, and it has everything else been defaced. So if these people who, the angels, did that, they did it for a reason. They just don't go and put a huge statue in the centre of a pile of rock and then have no way of getting it out. So that's the message, is that the Asherah, the stone, is right beside it. This is in Persian, and it's giving them the idea of what Isaiah is saying in 63:1 through to 5, because we've mentioned it before. And there it is in Aramaic. So we can see here that the priests stand on the altar, but what archaeologists don't tell you is that they'd all been knocked over, and there was 250 metres or so inland, because a tsunami had come along, or appears to be a tsunami had come along. What it was, they never were standing there in the first place. What it was, that they were placed in that position as if a tsunami had come through and knocked them all over. The hats are missing. They weigh 5 tons apiece. The eyes are missing. The eyes are coral. They were found scattered all over the place. And of course they've started up, stand these things back up again and put the 5-ton hat back on. Now 5 means in Aramaic, or in the New Testament, father. So when you've got your priestly robes on and you've got your priestly hat on, it's called a mitre, which is the 8, 6, 7, 4th word of Hebrew, which is the total for the value of the Hebrew concordance of the Old Testament. So it ends with the mitre. So the mitre being placed back on is a really stupid move by archaeologists, and it should have left them where they found it. So suddenly the rejected Lord is back. The people not warned by the churches suddenly panic, heading in all directions towards the sea, Sheol, hell, Hades and death. This is a Christian world. As I said before, they began restoring these things and putting them back so you can't read the message. It's all to do with Armageddon. These huge statues placed in the ground, of course, 30 feet in the ground, the holes were dug on an angle, and these things are put into it, so there's no way in the world that anything would move them. And the idea is to have it in this various locations, all angled and running in haphazard directions all over the place like a mad woman. Like mad woman's shit, I was going to say, but that's a bit nice, isn't it? Okay, so it goes on, there's some more Arabic there. And the point is that when the CIA reads this, they'll have to hire an Arab to read it for them.
Well, this is...
Or a Persian.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read that one because you've got to read it backwards.
Well, the one before, this is the reference out of Matthew 5:33, where in the Peshitta, it talks about the Lord, Yahweh, God, Allah. And we've explained before that Allah is the word for God, but it is not a name. It is a title, like CEO of a corporation or the captain of a ship. So it's his job description. His personal name as the Lord is Yahweh. Now, reading this backward, again you have heard it said in the past, to those in the past, that you shall not lie. Let your oath be complete and fulfill it to Yahweh. So that's where it's talking about Lord, the Lord, Yahweh. And then the next verse, it talks about heaven being the throne of God, Allah. But I say unto you, do not swear by heaven, for it is the throne of Allah, or God. So this is where Allah, is the word used throughout Islamic countries. It is not the personal name of God, it is his title. And his personal name today is Brian Leonard Golightly Marshall.
I want to show you this here. We, for a screen capture, we usually do it on the one computer, but they've hacked me once again, and now there's nothing we can do to install this thing back in this other computer. And they just keep constantly harassing us with it. So it doesn't matter.
It's all good. Okay, that one's going off.
How do we stop this thing?
F9. That's it. Done. Okay. Later, gator, guys.